Hey guys, my name is Jeff, and this is a 1974 Triumph TR6, finished in its factory-correct mimosa yellow over a black interior. In 2024, this car had its original motor rebuilt by a British specialty shop, Delta Motorsports, here in Phoenix, Arizona, and underneath, the suspension has been completely overhauled at an expense of $3,300. And if that sounds great to you, well, this car is up for sale. It's heading up for auction and will be selling with no reserve on Bring a Trailer as offered from Cascio Motors. And in this video, I'll take you through the exterior, the interior, the powertrain, and of course, we'll take it for a drive. So moving on to the exterior, this car is finished in its factory-correct mimosa yellow, which is a fantastic color, but only the exterior has been repainted under previous ownership. If we open up the door jambs here, we can see the original factory mimosa yellow paint in there, and that goes for the same for the trunk and the engine bay as well. And looking at the rest of the car, a lot of the chrome or bright work appears to have been refinished or replaced at some point, as it looks absolutely phenomenal on this car as well. The TR6 is a very cool Triumph because it featured an improvement on styling, which felt sort of stagnant with the TR4 and the TR5, but was improved here and brought into the modern era. As we go ahead and look at the front of the car, we do have a TR6 badge right there in the center, these big H4 Super headlights on each side, turn signals, a chrome bumper with these American rubber stops for safety reasons, as this was an American import car. And then we can also see this spoiler here on the bottom. Now that was introduced for the TR6 in 1973, and seeing as this is a 1974 model, of course it was carried over. Moving on to the side here, the body has these beautiful fender flares that nicely incorporate the sportiness of the car, but below that, we have these 15-inch TR6 wheels, which also appear to have been redone at some point because they do look phenomenal. Wrapped around that are these Michelin X Red Band, as they call them, tires, and this is actually what would have come on the car when it was delivered off of the boat in 1974, according to the certificate of trust as how the car would have been spec'd. So I think it looks phenomenal and very original or correct to factory specs in that case. As we take a look at the back here, we do have a British Leyland badge. That's a very cool piece there. Windshield wipers, the driver's side mirror appears to be redone or refinished. As we come down the side, I love the way these door handles work with their locks. They actually have the push button there to get in, which is very cool. And as we get to the sort of interior compartment as well, we should point out that there's actually a full tonneau cover that'll be included that covers the entire interior section when the top is down, but it is a convertible, so there's a black soft top underneath this soft top cover that you can also raise when necessary. As we keep moving down the car, more fender flares in the rear, more of those Michelin Red Band tires, a center fuel filler here in the back, the TR6 sticker, another chrome bumper with those similar rubber stops for safety standards. Of course, a black finish in the rear with our taillights, which are quite sharp, and even a sort of twin tube exit exhaust. But you also have a trunk back here that we can open up by pushing a button, and that shows us some of the tonneau cover, the jack. You have a full-size spare underneath all of this, and even a spare wheel that's included in the sale. I also like that this is actually a stop, so it'll actually stay open if you want it to. That's a quick look at the exterior.
Underneath this TR6, the independent suspension was overhauled in June of 2024 for $3,389.21. The rear trailing arm bushing and shock bushings have been replaced. The rear shocks were drained and refilled with heavier grade oil. The lower control arm bushings, shock bushings, sway bar bushings, and link assemblies, and front and rear steering rack mount bushings were replaced as well. The alignment and undercarriage were inspected and tightened, and the brakes were bled.
So moving on to the interior, if we go ahead and open up the door here, we can see our factory-correct black interior. And looking at the condition, these seats are in phenomenal shape. So it appears that these have been redone at some time. We don't have any documentation for that, but they look too good to be original, I would say. You can see that it matches the doors here, which have these pockets, manual windows, door handles, of course, a walnut veneer face here with Smith's instrumentation, but we'll focus more on that in a sec. You do have a bit of storage here in the back in addition to what you have in the trunk space, but perhaps the most cool part, in addition to our factory correct mimosa yellow here on the door jambs, would actually be this plate here. This is the Triumph Motors British Leyland UK Limited plate, Coventry, England, and manufactured in March of 1974. How cool is that? Now let's move on to the rest of the car. If we go ahead and climb in, it looks like the speakers have been redone behind, we can see we also have a Panasonic radio in this car. And one of the interesting things is that it has this center ignition, which this is something that the TR6 had. You'll notice it's just below the steering column, and that was so they could easily add the steering wheel lockout, and that's what you'll find there. Of course, it is a 3-pedal car for our 4-speed manual transmission that we have over here on the side. And if we go ahead and start this car up, starts right up. You can see all of the gauges come to life there. Of course, your speedo on the left with some of your turn signal flashing lights, and you even have our tach, oil pressure, fuel, temp, voltage, all of that. It all works beautifully. A lot of various controls here in the center that you'll notice for the various blowers, the heat, choke, and of course some of the various lighting functions, a locking glove box. You do have these vents, which are just these fresh air intake vents, lights, wipers, all that here, easy to access. You even get a rear view mirror, a driver's side mirror, and these sun visors. So a fairly simple interior, but it's all about enjoying that open top British sports car experience.
Under the hood is a naturally aspirated Triumph 2.5-liter inline 6 with 2 Zenith Stromberg carburetors producing approximately 101 horsepower, 128 pound-feet of torque, which was rebuilt in 2024 by Delta Motorsports, a British-only specialty shop here in Phoenix, Arizona, at the expense of $9,800. The straight 6 is paired with an all-synchromesh 4-speed manual transmission, sending power to the rear wheels. The TR6 weighs just 2,500 pounds and achieves 0 to 60 in the high 8-second range.
So what's it like to drive the Triumph TR6? Well, this car drives absolutely wonderfully. First of all, the 4-speed synchromesh that you have here with the gearbox makes it almost effortless to shift. And then the suspension is firm thanks to all that money invested. And that straight 6 sounds beautiful and runs flawlessly, especially out here in the 110-degree Phoenix summer heat. This car is incredibly wonderful to drive. It feels light and sporty, almost as if the car is wrapped around you, which is why the British sports cars and roadsters became so famous in the first place for their driving enjoyment. Sounds great as it revs out the car. You could easily take this car through a canyon or switchbacks, and I think you'd have a great time with it. Or if you just wanted to take it to Cars and Coffee, cruise down PCH, whatever the case is, this car is an absolute blast. It looks the part, sounds the part, and thanks to a lot of money invested, definitely drives the part. So with that, that is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the walk around of the exterior, interior, powertrain, and taking a drive in this beautiful 1974 Triumph TR6. If you liked everything you saw, this is my moment to remind you that this car is actually for sale. It will be selling with no reserve on Bring a Trailer as offered from Cascio Motors. So if you want this exact car, this is your opportunity. But that's also the end of the video. So if you enjoyed it and could leave me a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it, and consider getting subscribed for more content like this in the future. With that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.